With Bloodlines coming out, we're going to do a speed run, a detailed speed run into all of the Final Destination films, 1 to 5, not the novels, just the films. I'll be giving a grade ranking to each of the kills as we go, and also be ranking the premonitions that start off every single film from 1 to 5. Timestamps are down below for your convenience. Don't forget to subscribe if you like deep dives, recommendations, and horror movies. The first Final Destination film was not only originally a concept for an episode of The X-Files, but it's also inspired by the 1984 film Sole Survivor, a film where the lone survivor of a plane crash is haunted by survivor's guilt, and then death sends for her own collection, hoping to finish its original plan. I have not seen this film. I definitely need to check it out. But as we know, the first Final Destination film follows student Alex, who boards Flight 180 with his classmates for a senior trip to Paris. The original draft for this film had several strangers that were going on the plane. That was the idea, but it was changed to teens because of the current trend with teen slasher horror movies, which I think ended up saving it as not only a movie, but just as a franchise as a whole. Just before takeoff, Alex has a terrifying premonition, this is our first one, of a plane exploding mid-air. His plane. He panics and causes a scene, and he is removed from the plane, but during this chaos, several other people are also removed or follow him. His friend Todd, rival Carter, Carter's girlfriend Terry, classmate Clear Rivers. I'll never get over her name is Clear Rivers. Also, student Billy and teacher Miss Newton. Moments later, of course, the plane explodes exactly what Alex had predicted or seen in his premonition. This is our first premonition disaster, and unfortunately, there are 287 passengers who end on this plane. 39 connected to the school trip. I have to put this one in first place. It is the first one we're talking about today, but it did start off everything, and it also is such an epic disaster. It's horrific to watch. And I'll never forget the first time I saw the window shatter when they're all in the airport complaining about Alex and how Alex got them off the flight. Even rewatching it, chills. Maybe not chills, but is so well constructed. Now Alex and the other survivors are questioned by the FBI as Alex's prediction was extremely suspicious, and the survivors begin to deal with survivor's guilt. And I think if you look really hard at this series as not a surface level fun creative kill franchise, you'll find that that is really the core theme of all of the movies. But let's not get too deep into that. They also are trying to understand the fact that Alex's premonition was real. The 39 victims are paid tribute to 39 days later when the school holds a memorial service. But shortly after, Todd has a serious accident. In fact, it's fatal. This is the bathroom strangling, which is ruled as him ending his own life. He slips on water and falls onto a clothesline above his bath. The clothesline then wraps around his neck, cutting off his air supply. He struggles trying to get free. There's even scissors nearby that are just out of reach, and his father is in the next room, which is awful. He's unable to call for help. It's pretty gnarly. His eyes turn red, but what is the weirdest part is this blue water. Not that it was there or that even it's blue, but the fact that it backtracks after this scene. We do see a lot of water throughout all of these films. A lot of it is used as fake outs or setups to a chaotic scene, and then people end in a different way. That's what makes them so creative. But in this scene, the water takes itself out of the equation. It is not going to trial. Why is the water covering its own tracks? So weird, and doesn't make sense with anything else we see water do in this series. I'm gonna give this one a C because it is a little bit all over the place, and I don't think it's a really fun first individual ending. Because of the lack of evidence, timing, and circumstances, Todd's death is ruled as him ending himself, but Alex doesn't buy it. He teams up with Clea, who has her own suspicions, to investigate, and breaking into the morgue to investigate, they meet William Bloodworth, also known as Tony Todd. William is a mortician who gives them all the answers that they're looking for in about 2 minutes. No other investigation needed. William explains that they've disrupted Death's design, and now it's coming for them in the order that they were meant to be taken out on the plane. And one by one, that's how it happens. Terry is struck when having a fight with her boyfriend Carter in the middle of the street. Her last words are to drop fucking dead. and then she's hit by a speeding bus. Believe it or not, I'm gonna give this one a B because I think it is shocking and you don't expect it. It's not the most creative, but it really got me, and it was the start of another trend that you'll find in this series where they love the shock, almost jump scare element. It doesn't have to be poetic, just someone gets hit by something, just to wrap up the character's narrative or just to wrap up the whole film. Now Alex confirms that there is a design because Todd and Terry would have been first. And who is next but Miss Luton? So Alex goes to suss out her property and make sure there are no hazards. But the teacher catches him and calls the FBI, who catches Alex in the act lurking around her house. And he's pulled in for further questioning. Meanwhile, Miss Luton has a chaotic date with the design. In a horrific chain of events, her computer screen explodes, the screen's glass punctures into her, her kitchen catches on fire, but her actual demise is caused by her reaching up for a tea towel, which knocks knives off the kitchen bench, and it goes straight into her, but Alex manages to make it back to her in time after fate gives him a glimmer of what is about to happen, and he arrives just in time to witness a chair then falling onto the knife, which is in her, to really solidify. Alex then escapes the house before a massive explosion, which of course makes him look very innocent. Miss Newton is a messy ending, but I love how chaotic it all is. You have no idea how she's actually gonna leave this world. So I'm gonna give this one an A, with Alex arriving and not knowing what to do. There's a lot going on. It's a sensory nightmare, but in a really fun horror way. So Billy, Carter, Alex, and Clea get together and they talk about the design order. But Carter is traumatized by the loss of Terry, and you know, it's been a rough year, and he decides that he's going to take himself out. It's not going to be some kind of design. So he stops his car on the train tracks with everybody inside. As a train emerges, everyone gets out but Carter, and then Carter realizes, oh, actually I don't want this to happen, but he is stuck and his car won't move. But Alex saves him just in time, pulling him from the seat seconds before the train crashes into the car. But the collision creates parts of the car on the track, and a shard of this metal from that collision then shoots up and gets Billy. Billy's head rolling is very intense. I think it's probably one of the darkest moments, and it has that element of surprise as well. I'm actually gonna give this one an A+. It really got me. I didn't see it happening after they finally got off the train tracks, and there's just something about it that makes me feel ill every time, where a lot of times these scenes make me laugh in a really weird horror fan kind of way, okay? Not like a realistic way. It turns out that Carter was next, but Alex saving him intervened on the design, and it skipped him. Alex figures out now he's next, so he goes full doomsday and hides out in a cabin, attempting to stay as safe as possible. But it's only now that Alex remembers, very convenient timing, that just before the plane went up, he had swapped seats. So it's actually Clea who is next. He races to her home even though the FBI is chasing him, because the guy who is suspicious, he's at every freak accident within the last couple of weeks, is running through the town like a maniac. But Alex still manages to get to Clea, although a fire has started caused by exposed electrical wires and Clea dropping a jerry can in her panic to escape. Clea is in a car and Alex then just grabs the live wire, saving her, but obviously risking his own life. He believes that sacrificing himself will cause the design to skip her completely, but no one is fatally hurt. And we jump to 6 months later. Alex, Clea, and Carter finally go to Paris, but Alex still can't figure out why the design skipped him. As they discuss it, a freak accident nearly gets Alex. A bus knocks a sign loose, which swings a giant sign down onto him. But Carter, he saves Alex, knocking him out of the way just for the sign to swing back and get him. After all of these premonitions, that's poetic. But what's even more poetic is that this sign says 180 in reverse, which is the flight from the start. Sorry, my cat is here. But for Carter's sign, I'm gonna give that one a C. I do like the element of surprise, but we've already seen it several times in this film. Obviously with the bus and then with the shard on the train tracks. And I feel like it's over too soon, although it's a very fun ending to the film. Final Destination 2 takes place 1 year after the disaster of Flight 180. And we follow college student Kimberly, who is on a road trip with friends when she has a terrifying premonition of a highway incident. It's caused by a logging truck dropping its cargo, and I know a lot of people are terrified by just this picture alone. It became a meme, but I want to let you guys know that these logs are actually CGI. They tried to do a test shoot with real logs before doing the film, and they weren't bouncy enough. I don't know if that makes you feel safer. It doesn't make me feel any safer, but just know that this is CGI, so it's pretty good. I need to say that Kimberly is not very in tune with her intuition. She is no John Edwards. The signs for this collision are about as subtle as a car crash, pun intended. We're talking about a bus full of screaming students yelling "pile up," her dad warning her about leaking transmission fluid, and literally "Highway to Hell" playing on her station. Oh, and there's this kid who's telling her, he's warning her. The premonition alone is horrific. It's ghastly. Multiple collisions, explosions. It's awful. It's really horrific to see. I'm gonna put this premonition as the 3rd out of 5. After the premonition takes place, she comes back to her own body and starts seeing these little signs play out again. So she blocks the on-ramp, which stops several people from entering and ultimately saves them. State Trooper Thomas Burke is in a nearby car and comes over, pulls her out of the car to question her and what she's doing. While she's out of the car, her vehicle ends up being swooped up by the collision, so her 3 friends end up being dragged into the crash. Kimberly and the other survivors, including the trooper, Thomas Burke, lottery winner Evan Lewis, mother Nora, son Timmy, businesswoman Kat, recreational user Rory, and teacher Eugene are taken in for questioning. It's here that they talk about the premonition and refer that back to the first movie or the events that happened a year ago with Flight 180. They talk about the theory of design and how that could be carried out. It's just introduced to the group. But missing in action from the survivors is Isabella, who is pregnant, and we'll come back to her. Also, this is the only Final Destination film that does not have a memorial service. Soon after, Evan is the first to have his date with fate. He is a lottery winner. They tie this kind of into the scene. At one point, because we're horror fans, we're excited because he puts his hand into the garbage disposal. And this is while a fire is happening in his kitchen, but he manages to escape, which was the whole plan because he has a very interesting ending when he goes out the fire escape and slips on the ground when he's finally out free and safe. And the ladder from the fire escape goes straight down into his eyeball. This one gets a grade A for me. And now we get the most disappointing part of the entire franchise. We learn that Alex from the first film has died off screen. And get this, he was hit in the face from a brick from an adjacent building that became dislodged. Alex being hit by a brick off screen obviously gets an F from me. I shouldn't even put it in a rating because it doesn't happen in the films, but I just want to publicly give it an F. The state troopers looking into the survivors of a premonition of Flight 180 and finds this information. I really think my premonition or my guess is this might come out in the new film. I feel like this is such a weird part of the movies that never really got tied up on screen. Kimberly seeks help from Claire, the last living survivor of the first film, who is now institutionalized for her own safety, completely voluntary, trying to stay away from the outside world. She's here to confirm all of Kimberly's darkest fears about the design, but she also questions the order because it doesn't seem quite right. She tells Kimberly to look out for signs. In the next scene, Kimberly has premonitions of pigeons. But honestly, it is one of my favorite scenes in the franchise. Little Timmy goes to the dentist, and if the dentist wasn't scary enough, Tim almost chokes after a series of events leaves him alone in the room and a rubber toy falls into his mouth. But just like Evan, he lives to tell the tale. He is saved from the dentist chair and he goes outside where the actual event occurs. Kimberly sees him, runs over and screams to look out for pigeons. Kimberly is so goofy. She's running, screaming pigeons at this young boy who's just got out of the dentist office. And Tim hears the call for pigeons, sees some pigeons, and starts chasing them just as a construction worker drops a pane of glass. It literally flattens him. Splat. Honestly, I think Kimberly might be to blame. I feel like she's doing the design's work for it. Timmy's pigeon glass splat gets a A+ from me. It's one of my favorites. Clea leaves her hideaway realizing that she might find peace in helping Kimberly, and they visit Tony Todd, William, of course, his name, the mortician, hoping to understand why the order is out of whack. And of course, he magically knows everything about this situation. And he explains that new life can stop death's plan. They realize that Isabella, who was also in the incident, who was heavily pregnant, could hold this new life that would save them all, changing the design. They have to find her. Meanwhile, the rest of the group regathers in order to protect each other and come up with a plan. But it's Nora's turn next, and this is truly a freak accident. As someone from the group gets a premonition, they get a premonition now, because Kimberly obviously cannot do the job right. So someone else starts getting the premonitions. They see a hook and they realize that they should call Nora and warn her, who is in an elevator. So just as she gets this call warning her of hooks, she realizes that a man in the elevator is holding a box of hooks. She starts freaking out and she moves forward when one of these hooks catches onto the back of her hair. The elevator doors open and she panics, attempting to leave it, but her head is lodged in the doors and the elevator continues to travel, separating it from her body. I'm gonna give this one a B. I enjoyed it, but they really love, the removal of the crown. It's a big thing. The hooks and the premonition really sell it for me. But help is on the way. The pregnant woman, Isabella, has been found, but her water breaks and she travels to the hospital with another officer. The rest of the survivors pile in a car to go look for her. But while on this wacky road trip, they discover that they're all actually connected and connected to the events of the first film. Every single one of their lives has been changed by what happened with the Flight 180. Like the butterfly effect, every person's fate was changed by survivors getting off that plane. They call it a rift in death's design. Now they realize that this design is trying to complete what it should have a year ago in various ways. So what may seem like out of order is the order that should have been complete before Alex changed it all. Or really, well, stay tuned till the end. Just as they get a grasp on what's happening, the car carrying most of the group has a collision, resulting in PVC pipes crashing through the back of it. They are okay though, mostly. Eugene does get transported by an ambulance to a hospital. Side note, while this is all happening, Rory saves a boy who's on the property that they've crashed into, Brian. He was about to be hit by another car and Rory pushes him out of the way. We'll come back to this a little bit later. So while Eugene gets taken away, Kat is still stuck in the car, and when first responders get to Kat, there is a PVC pole that is stuck through the back of her chair. Remember this, because when the first responder takes a chainsaw and decides to try and remove part of the car to get her out, she's stuck. The airbag deploys and it knocks her head back into it. I'm gonna give this one a B as well. I like the look of it. It is a little bit confusing how it all came to fruition, but the design always finds a way. But Kat's end is overshadowed because her body drops a cigarette, which lands on the ground and ignites gasoline from a nearby van, causing an explosion that sets barbed wire into the air, flying. It hits Rory and just separates his body. It is the most A+. A+ to this. This is one of the best ones. Now Kimberly, Clea, and Burke, the trooper, rush to the hospital after Kimberly has a vision of the doctor. They believe now that Isabella may have complications during childbirth. However, the baby was delivered safely because the design is a little bit more sneaky than that and wants to be creative. Eugene is at the same hospital and begins to have his own silent battle as all of the vents begin to close up and he is trapped in a room that is full of flammable gas. Clea goes to check on him, thinking that he might be part of this premonition, and upon entering the room, his oxygen tank explodes, ending both Eugene and Clea. I'm so mad about this. Why bring back this character from the first film whose name is Clea Rivers, and she doesn't even die in the Clea River incident that's in the next scene? There is no God. Kimberly realizes that a premonition that she's having is of her own death and drives into a lake to end herself, thinking that's going to help Death's design, but she is resuscitated, thus creating a new life. The thing of this film is that Kimberly is the problem. She warns people of her premonitions, which allows them to be completed. She even tells other people to look out for premonitions like the hooks, which when warning them makes people freak out, or makes people enter situations like Clea going to check on Eugene after something that Kimberly has seen, or yelling pigeons, causing him to run over to the pigeons where he is in the line of danger. If this woman had ended and been resuscitated sooner, we all would have been better off. But the kills for this film are pretty cool, so I am gonna forgive Kimberly. this time. So yes, annoyingly, she does go into a clear river and then she's resuscitated. And as they're bringing her back, they're yelling, clear, clear. Time passes and Kimberly and Burke go to a barbecue with the parents of that boy. Remember that boy I mentioned earlier? That's Brian, and their family is called the Gibbons. So they're there just having a barbecue. I don't know why, honestly. If anyone can answer that for me, please let me know. I've watched this back to back, trying to figure out why they would go back to this horrendous scene where they know people have gone in horrific ways. So just as they're catching up on old times, having this barbecue, they recall how Rory earlier in the film saved their son Brian. And just as this happens, the grill explodes and Brian also does. And his arm lands on his mother's lunch plate. A minus ending of this poor boy and the film. Barbecue, true barbecue. God, I love the opening for Final Destination 3. I'm a huge theme park lover. So there is something about this roller coaster event that just tickles me. This film is called Final Destination 3, but if you're in Japan, it's called Final Dead Coaster, which is much cooler. In Final Destination 3, we follow high school senior Wendy, who visits an amusement park with her boyfriend Jason, best friend Carrie, and Carrie's boyfriend Kevin. There's other classmates there as well, including Ashley and Ashlyn, Justice for the Ashes. Wait, did they do that on purpose? The night is a little ominous and Wendy starts to see the signs of death coming for her and decides to take photos as she goes as a nice keepsake. Fun fact, this voice of the devil is Tony Todd.
But you cannot hide.
So while Tony Todd doesn't appear in this film, his voice does twice, and I'll let you know where the other one is. While boarding the Devil's Flight roller coaster, Wendy has a terrifying premonition, and you know what I'm gonna say? It's a series of events that will happen, including a camcorder falling onto the tracks, leading to the roller coaster derailing, and the tracks collapsing, ending everybody on board. It is horrific. It's every ride lover's nightmare. Very horrific, but I love the setting of this one, so I'm going to give it the 4th out of 5 for premonition scenes. After experiencing the premonition, Wendy panics and gets off the ride with 9 others, including Kevin, Ashley, Ashlyn, Frankie, Lewis, Ian, and Aaron. But Jason and Carrie stay on the roller coaster and end along with the other passengers. Weeks pass and Wendy turns into a moody and mysterious girl because, you know, it's just happened to her, not every single other person who was connected to these people. And my girls, the Ashes, invite her to come tan with them. But Wendy is too manic pixie for them, and Kevin chases her down and explains that he's been looking to this incident that has happened before with a premonition, Flight 180. And he wants to discuss it with her, but she's not having any of it. But when she gets home, she finds her camera. I love the camera element of this. The photos, taking them through the event and through the design, I think is really fun. And she has a suspicion because if what she's seeing is real, it is pointing out hazards that could happen. And Ashley and Ashlyn look like they're on fire. So she starts to think and worry and in fact panic about the design that Kevin had explained earlier. She knows they're tanning. They invited her. Cut to Ashley and Ashlyn in one of the most iconic scenes in the series. They're in a tanning salon and after a loose shelf falls, it locks them inside and the condensation from their drink kicks the machine into overdrive. Now they're sealed in their malfunctioning tanning beds and they're left to burn alive. This one is an A+ for me. They are singing Love Roller Coaster along together and the next moment screaming. And it is horrific, but visually so fun. The best part is the transition from them in their tanning beds to them in their coffins. By the way, the ashes are literally ashes now. And this, of course, cements what Wendy already feared. Using the photos that she took that night, Wendy begins to decipher the design through hidden clues with the help of Kevin, who may be, let's just say, underqualified.
Or what, like he's gonna get crushed by a giant SpongeBob?
They go through a drive-through at the same time as Frankie, another survivor, but a runaway truck soon speeds down the road and it hits the back of the queue of the drive-through and it sends the engine fan from the car behind straight into Frankie's crown, the back of his crown. It's awful. It's a cool scene. I like that they incorporate a drive-through into it. Very strange and creative, but not very poetic. I'm gonna give this one a B-. Wendy then checks her photos and her photo of Frank confirms her own theory. There is a fan in it. So now she is off to find Lewis as a hammer appears to be in the next photo coming down on his head. They find Lewis at the gym, but he brushes them off. So he continues his workout at the gym, but just as he's doing it, the 2 swords that are above him on the wall fall down and they cut into the machine that he is on. He freaks out, but then he realizes that he's just had his near miss and he's fine. It's not coming for him. But he pulls up on this machine, and now because it's been damaged, it allows the weights to smush directly into his skull. It is alarming, and just as someone thinks that they're safe, something like that happening to them, it's pretty epic. That's an A from me. Wendy and Kevin then track down Ian and Aaron, who are my favorite goths. They're at a hardware store where they work. They try to explain to them about the design and show them the photos, but Ian and Aaron aren't easily convinced. Honestly, I think that the managers of this hardware store must have set this up. The fact that two teenage kids are working after hours, no one's there, basically closing and restocking the shelves with so much equipment. They have a forklift that they're using. Can teens get forklift licenses? They're using electric saws with very minimal safety. But interesting enough, these scenes were filmed in a real hardware store, and that is why it is seen as closed, because they had to use it after hours. In fact, it took the crew a really long time to have to turn around and hide every single label so that they couldn't identify where this was or any of the products that were used, because none want to be associated with a film about teens dying. But as Wendy's following them down aisle by aisle, she sees these stakes, which she believes is part of the premonition photo. Just as the stakes start to fall, she stops Ian from being impaled, but the crash forces Aaron to fall backwards, and she hits this nail gun that goes directly into the back of her crown over and over and over. On a grand scale, I wouldn't say this one is very epic, but the nail gun design, I feel like it became not iconic, but a lot of people do love this scene, including me. This is a B+ for me. Wendy then identifies the next target that she didn't realize was part of the design before. She zooms in on the seats and sees her sister and her sister's friend. She didn't even realize they were on the roller coaster. Wendy and Kevin race to their local fair to save Julie as she is being dragged by a horse with a rope wrapped around her, and it leads her directly onto these plowing spikes. But Kevin, good old Kevin, he is useful. He cuts the rope just in time. Unfortunately, they then realize too late who the friend was who was with her, and it's her friend Perry, who then gets staked by a flagpole that just falls through the sky. There's just fireworks and explosions going off everywhere at this fair, causing these kinds of incidents. So it's the worst place to be when you're in the middle of the design. The flagpole is really cool, so I'm going to give it a B, but it does happen quite fast. And I don't think that Perry really gets the screen time she deserved. Ian then shows up at the fair, and he is distraught by what has happened to Aaron. So he confronts them while these fireworks are going off, and there are so many near misses. Somehow he ends up okay, but one of the fireworks hit a nearby cherry picker, which falls on him with all of the other survivors watching. The cherry picker for me is a C. It's just not very poetic, interesting, or fun, especially because they were at an event with fireworks. Come on. Wendy was meant to be hit by some of these fireworks, but again was saved. So Wendy, Julie, and Kevin think that they have survived and the design has skipped them. That's what they think. Months later, Wendy is on a subway train with her roommate, Laura, and her friend, Sean. And if you listen carefully, you can hear Tony Todd's voice. He is the train conductor, and he's saying, next stop is the end of the line.
Next stop is the end of the line.
And just as Wendy tries to leave the train, she unexpectedly reunites with Julie and Kevin, who have boarded the same train. Just now, John Edwards is back in the air, and she starts to have a premonition. A rat eating a candy bar, yes, you heard me, will cause the train to derail. Screeching down through the underground, the passengers will be thrown around and end on impact in grisly ways. She is seemingly the last survivor on the tracks, but of course another train is coming. She then comes out of her body, that's so Raven style, realizing that she has just had this premonition. She gives the other two survivors the look, and they desperately try to stop the train before it barrels towards disaster. Unfortunately, the film cuts to black, as they like to do at the end of the Final Destination films. They really love ending on a big twist or big collision, and we don't get to see what happens to these three people. They could be back too, we don't know, but we assume that they ended in this disaster. I can't really give it a grade because we don't know how it ended. How did it end? As a great poet once said. But the premonition is pretty cool, and I'm kind of sad they didn't start another film with a similar idea of that kind of transport. Final Destination 4 is known as the final destination, but we all know that there is another film after, and now another film coming out. The film follows college student Nick. Yes, he's that 30-year-old college student from the good old days in horror. He's at the McKinley Speedway with his girlfriend Laurie and his friends Hunt and Janet, along with hundreds of other spectators. And here he has a vivid premonition of a crash that sends debris into the stands, causing them to collapse on all of the spectators. People are getting punctured by shrapnel. It's just chaos, explosions, all the typical premonition moments. Unfortunately, this is where the movie really shows off its 3D, and I'm not saying you can't like 3D, but it's not really the most realistic element. It hasn't aged that well, but it does fulfill the brief, and it gives the film that 3D entry that all films in the 2000s, all horror franchises, desperately needed for who knows what reason. But it really does stick to the theme of Final Destination, which is high-risk situations that are everyday occurrences. Some to do with transport and travel, and others to do with leisurely activities like roller coasters. And that's why Final Destination gets under your skin. It's meant to be relatable situations, things that people do all the time that can go horribly wrong. I enjoy all of the Final Destination films in one way or another. This one I understand and agree with people when they say it's their least favorite. And because of the graphics of this premonition scene, I'm gonna put it at the bottom. So this is the bottom. This is the worst premonition disaster. Back to the events, Nick panics and urges his group and nearby strangers to leave. Moments later, the disaster happens for real. But thanks to his warning, a handful of people escape, including Laurie, Hunt, Janet, tow truck driver Carter, who is a stain on society, Samantha, Andy, and his girlfriend Nadia. And of course, the security guard George. As the group tries to process what is happening, Nadia is hit by a stray tire that flies out of the stadium, ending her instantly. And that's Nadia first. Nadia's ending is another shock surprise one that they love. I'm gonna give this one a B. After the incident, the group of four that went together, Nick and his crew, discuss how they got a second chance and how they should just forget the incident that just happened. You know, the tragic incident. But how can they forget when they're in a coffee shop called Death by Caffeine and it has this on their menu? We then see them reunite with other victims at the memorial, including Carter, who is blatantly racist to George. This is one of the weirdest moments of the Final Destination films. He blames George for preventing him from going back in to save his wife. It's a really strange and serious tonal shift for the movies. But thank God, racist Carter is next in the design. He drives to George's house and attempts to burn a cross on his lawn, but fate intervenes and his tow truck that he's driving ends up going in reverse down the road, and then he gets caught up on it, caught into the chain. He's hooked and then dragged down the road. It catches on fire and he turns into a fireball, basically. Carter is discussed online as an ironic kill, mirroring historic events with bigots executing victims in the street in similar ways. I'm gonna give this one a B-. I'm glad he died, but too much airtime for me. Next, Samantha, who has a fake out disaster. She's getting her hair done at a salon and there's threats shown everywhere. Sharp scissors, hot tools, and a fan coming off the ceiling. But just like in the other films, death has its own little sense of humor and the threat is actually outside. She gets hit by a rock that is shot up from a lawnmower that is working nearby. And fun fact, Mythbusters proved that this could really happen. I love the simplicity of this one, even though it's kind of a fake out, but I do like that it is possible. So I'm gonna give it a B+. The four college kids get together and of course they find the information for Flight 180. I'm really impressed that they printed this out. So cute. And best believe they instantly buy into the design theory. Well, except for the one with the bad haircut. So you know who's next? Well, soon. Let death cook. Nick returns to the Speedway crime scene to try and remember how the design is laid out. And here he meets with George, the security guard, who takes him through the security tapes. They're just casually looking at footage of mass casualties. And it's Andy, who is a car mechanic who seems to be the next on the list. They do try and warn him, but he becomes fence meat when a CO2 tank blasts him into a metal chain fence. It slices him in a very distinct pattern. Although I am going to give this one a C because it feels so similar to Rory's ending in the second film. And I feel like that one was much more impressive. Now Nick gets a mini premonition, which has to be a throwback to Clear Rivers, and he races to find his friend Hunt. Hunt is at a country club and has one of the most memorable scenes of this film. He drops a coin at the bottom of the pool and the pump has just been set into overdrive and it sucks him down and he gets caught at the bottom of the pool. And while you think he's running out of oxygen, something else is happening. It is sucking at his insides and they explode everywhere. Let's just say it's very 3D. A similar real life incident has happened before, and I do think it's just an awful coincidence that this came out around the same time. As a fictional scene, I give this one an A. It is very memorable. But while this is happening, Janet narrowly survives her own Clear Waters incident, a deadly malfunction at a car wash. George is aware that he could be next, and he has his own very dark backstory, tragic story about what happened to his family. He actually tries to take himself out, and we see him discuss this with the group, but don't worry, he snaps out of it and he wants some cookies.
We get the cookies.
This film is so strange for a Final Destination film. But soon after, maybe the worst mini premonition yet, Nick realizes that there was another spectator. He just forgot. Jonathan, the cowboy who survived the original disaster, but they reach out to him too late. Get this, he's laying in a hospital bed and above him there is another patient who is waiting for a bath, but they are left unattended in the room and the bath overflows and that softens the ceiling within minutes, causing the bath to fall through the ceiling and squash Jonathan. I'm gonna give this one a C. I just think it's so strange. Now Death is back on track and George is next. It's sad because he had a new lease on life after those cookies.
We get the cookies.
But he gets hit by an ambulance outside the hospital. I don't know why an ambulance would be racing around outside a hospital. I do think that that is one of the most ironic deaths. I need to stop questioning fate, but my God. I'll give that one a C+. We've seen a lot of collision, but I think it's really interesting knowing what kind of vehicle it was and where they were. Nick then has this final premonition, which is very cool. I think better than the Speedway. He sees an explosion at the local mall cinema that Laurie and Janet are currently in, and in true meta style, they're watching a 3D movie. And let me tell you, this moment is where I know it is truly a horror movie. But in this premonition, Laurie tries to escape this theater and is sucked into the escalator. It is such a wild scene, perhaps the best one, graphic-wise as well. And Janet ends after getting some real 3D action. In the cinema, there's an explosion and she refuses to leave her seat. But after all, this was just a premonition, so that's So Raven style. Nick manages to snap out of it and go and save the world. No, save this mall cinema before these flammable barrels ignite. And just a note, there is a nail gun in this movie. I feel like the nail gun has become the reverse bear trap of the Final Destination franchise. They're safe for now, but 2 weeks later, Nick, Laurie, and Janet meet up at a cafe. This is the staple of the films as they discuss how relieved they are to have been saved and to live. But the signs start up again and Nick realizes that everything may have been leading to this moment. And suddenly a truck swerves, avoiding a collapsing scaffold outside and crashes into the building, ending their lives. It happens so fast, but it's not really enjoyable because it cuts straight to this X-ray footage. And I feel like we've seen this so many times. We keep seeing a car accident be the ending or just tie up someone really quickly. It's very uninspired for everything else we've just seen, and the fact that we didn't get the last premonition in the cinema and the escalator in real life, it was all a dream. I feel kind of cheated. I'm gonna be mean, I'm gonna give that one a D. This film is such a strange entry. I can see why it doesn't hold up to the rest for a lot of people. The tone has a dramatic dip, it has unlikable characters, and of course, no Tony Todd at all, not even his voice. Apparently this is because of scheduling conflicts that he had while making Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. It is rated the lowest on IMDb for a reason. The Final Destination 5 brought a whole new curse to the franchise. It's the second film to be in 3D. It had the 3D option. But honestly, the graphics in this entry are so much better. It's really well constructed for only being 3 years older. But this film is a standout for many other reasons which we'll get to. Its callbacks during the film are fun for franchise lovers to spot, and just keep in mind they're shown throughout the whole film. Final Destination 5 follows follows Sam, who is traveling with his co-workers to a corporate retreat. But everything is halted when Sam has a terrifying premonition. The North Bay Bridge is about to collapse, ending everyone as cars fall into the water. People are crushed with things. It's very awesome for a 3D watch, but it's still very impressive without that. The bridge fully gives in, and during the premonition's last moments, everyone ends, except for Sam's girlfriend Molly, who Sam manages to guide to safety. This is the longest premonition disaster, going for 4 minutes and 44 seconds. And there's a lot to it, ending with Sam holding on for dear life, only to be sliced by corrugated iron that falls off a truck. The grand scale of this is so exciting and so epic, kind of like the plane. The graphics are great, and it's just a huge design. So I'm gonna put it as my number 2. Here is the full ranking of where I would put the premonitions. Do let me know where you would put them down below. So after this premonition, Sam is panicked and urges Molly and their colleagues, Nathan, Peter's girlfriend Candace, their boss Dennis, Olivia, and Isaac to flee. Moments later, the bridge collapses and Sam and the crew narrowly escape. And from their point of view, from the side, you get a different angle on how big the disaster actually is. Sam is then questioned by FBI agent Jim Block, as he knew what was going to happen. This mirrors the first movie, so pay attention. After this, the survivors gather at the memorial, where our favorite is back, William. And he is seen observing or really throwing out some ominous warnings. Who says this kind of thing at a memorial?
You all, just be careful now.
Sam and Molly have a soapy scene where they discuss that Sam should take his dream job, which is a cooking internship in Paris. Just keep in mind, everyone has their own little hobbies and side jobs, even though they're all working at this corporate business together. But splitting up will separate them for good, which is why Molly is technically his ex. But enough mushy stuff. It's not long until the pattern emerges and the survivors start ending in grisly ways. Yay! Candace has a particularly awesome ending. This is a fan favorite. She is practicing her hobby, which is gymnastics. Her routine is interrupted when she's launched from uneven bars as chalk is blown into her eyes, and she falls and snaps completely. And this is a throwback to a couple of moments earlier where she is playing with like a hair tie or a rubber band on her wrist and it snaps. And it's so chilling because the sound is kind of the same. Peter, who is also a survivor and is in a relationship with Candace, sees the whole event. Candace gets an A+, not for the landing. She didn't land shit. She wouldn't get a good score from any judges, but for her demise. Isaac is next, and thank God, because he's another racist loser. While at a massage parlor receiving acupuncture, he is tipped out of the massage table, drawing the needles into his body. But this is not what ends him. He slips and kind of moves into the corner as a fire starts, and then a shelf above him drops a really hefty Buddha statue onto his face. Smushin'. Buddha, karma, it doesn't get more poetic than that. I'll give that one a B. Sam and Molly now discuss moving to Paris together, but they find out about Isaac, and now the survivors get together to have a run-in with William, who cryptically tells them that to break the design, they can switch with someone. I love when they bring in new rules and new opportunities. If they find someone who wasn't meant to end in the bridge collapse, they can claiming their lifespan, absorbing it. Horror fans love to hate eye scenes, so we're fed really well with the next kill. Olivia. She commits to LASIK eye surgery, and she gets stuck in place when the machine malfunctions, when no one else is in the room. She puts up her hand to kind of stop it. It's going everywhere. But in true Final Destination fashion, she actually jumps out the window, and that's what causes her end. Although when she collides with the floor, her eyeball rolls across the screen. B+ for me. I love the eye aspect, but it's too similar to the pigeons. Now the FBI is really suspicious, and Agent Block asks them to just take a wild guess at what's happening.
Take a guess.
And then he's not satisfied with that guess.
That's all you got?
Maybe the FBI agent should be the one guessing. Meanwhile, Nathan accidentally ends his co-worker Roy. During an argument at the factory, he tries to push him to safety, realizing that he might be in danger, but the floor gives way and he accidentally gets hooked on the way down. I love this moment because it looks like he's almost getting spiked, but then they have a reveal that he's already gone. It is really fast and strange. I'm gonna give it a C+. I do like the spike part, but it all happens so quickly. I wanted a little bit more chaos. What happened to the old days when the teacher would have a run-in with a computer screen exploding and then a fire in her kitchen, and then a knife, and then a chair. Now it's just there's a hook and you're falling down. Suddenly, their boss, Dennis, who has finally arrived to the scene, is abruptly ended when a wrench is launched into his skull. That's a D for me. It is almost like a car accident. It happens so fast. It feels like we're speed running this design at this point. That evening, Sam accepts the job in Paris and then plans to reconnect with Molly over dinner in the restaurant he works at after hours, because after so much death, what's better than a steak dinner? Especially at a place full of knives and fire. But Peter, unraveling after Candace's incident, shows up at the restaurant intending to end Molly to receive her lifespan. And a fight for survival breaks out between the three. And now Peter is attempting to blow up the establishment, but the FBI agent Block intervenes. And now Peter sees his chance and ends him. Sam and Molly attack Peter in a dangerous fight scene, but it's the skewer that finally gets him. Sam goes straight through his body with a meat skewer from the kitchen. Now he absorbs Block's lifespan and Peter's lifespan, I guess. Whatever's left of it. Agent Block wasn't part of the design, so I'm not going to rank this. The skewer gets a C from me. But here is the big twist you've all been waiting for. This is why people love the fifth film. And honestly, I agree. 2 weeks later, Sam and Molly board a flight. And guess what flight it is? A flight to Paris. They have set this up from the start. It is Flight 180. It is a surprise prequel, and it links straight back to the first film. Everything that happened to Sam and his colleagues happened before Flight 180. Sam overhears the flight attendant discussing Alex's plane vision, and then the plane mid-air. This ends everyone on board. You get to see it all again in very grisly detail. So the design finally got Sam and Molly. In fact, it was fate. Probably the whole time. What caused the 180 flight to explode was fate trying to complete the design. And then Alex fleeing that started up a whole new issue. If you're a Final Destination buff, it is pretty obvious on a rewatch at least, all of the clues. This is the only film that doesn't have the 180 flight to refer back to. No one looks it up. No one looks into premonitions because it hasn't happened yet. It's funny how the bridge never came up with anyone else's research in all of the other films. And this is why the FBI agent goes so hard on them, because they haven't dealt with these premonitions before.
That's all you got?
They hadn't learned about Death's design, you know? It's crazy that Flight 180 is known so well because of Alex, but they've never spoken about the bridge before. Obviously, this was written after the first film, but it still works. It's great. But there's more. Even though Sam and Molly are gone, there is still Nathan, and he is at a bar. This happens at the same time as the flight. Nathan learns from a coworker that Roy had a fatal brain aneurysm and was meant to die any day now. So his time that he inherited, not that much. In fact, there is 0 left. The timer has run out because just as he's having this conversation, he is hit by the debris from the crash from the plane. This was such a good ending for the series that is so unserious, and having a secret prequel, I don't think they can do that again. So I'm really curious to see how Bloodlines will adapt to the story we already know. Here is the final ranking of the premonitions again. I would love to hear your ranking in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you do enjoy these videos, make sure to give them a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. I will be reviewing Final Destination Bloodlines in the coming days, spoiler free, to let you know whether you should run out and see it or if you should wait. Don't forget, I also reviewed Clown in a Cornfield, and if you want to check out what else is streaming this month to watch at home, I've done a list of horrors and thrillers that you can watch that are brand spanking new this May. Also, shout out to my hoodies. It's finally cool here again. So I've been living in my Spooky Astronaut hoodie. You can check these out at spookyastronauts.com. And a huge thank you to my patrons for keeping my channel afloat and allowing me to do these longer videos. Stay safe and stay spooky. Bye, friends.